Howdy folks, welcome back to another Out of Spec Renew video. I'm your host Alex, and we're here in my shop in Portland, Oregon. And what I've got to work on here today is a 2020 Chevrolet Bolt. I actually don't get to see a lot of these cars because they tend to be pretty reliable. They don't have a lot of issues, at least nothing major. But what we have here is we have a customer complaint of no heat. And in addition to that, he also said that there's, when he has the climate control running with the fans on, he can, kind of smell signs of rodents potentially getting into the car. So that might be a clue, depending on what we've got going on. I know that I have read online that coolant pumps on these can sometimes be an issue in terms of the heat not working. So I'm probably going to look at that, at least on first glance when I brought this in here and got the hood open. I noticed that there was no coolant flowing in the heater reservoir, even if I ran the heat. So let me go ahead and show you guys all that, and then we'll start taking a peek and see what we can find. Alright, so if I come in the car here and turn it on, we can turn on the heat, turn it all the way up to full temp. Let's see, we'll put it up here where we can feel it. And I get no heat. And it does definitely smell a bit like rodents, like I mentioned. The customer had said that. I mean, normally it should take a minute or so for the heat to come on, but I'll just let that run for a minute and make sure it doesn't actually heat up, but I don't think it will. And this is the pump for the heat coolant reservoir. The inlet where it should be pushing coolant in is on the back side here. And it actually does look like it might be pushing coolant. Maybe? Or was that just me? That might have just been me squeezing the hose. It doesn't appear that it's pushing any coolant, because normally you'd see, like on this coolant reservoir, you can see the coolant being pushed in there, but this is completely still. We get no flow. So, potentially a coolant pump issue. But since we heard that there's signs of rodents, and I see some evidence in here of that, I want to just take a look at things. So this is the actual heater element. I don't think there's a problem here because, like I said, it looks like we have a flow issue. Our coolant pump is actually located, as we follow this hose down, if I can find a place to set the light. If we follow this hose down, it goes to the pump way back here, which is down in the bottom. I don't know if you guys will be able to see the end of the hose on that. And well, how about that? So, oops, I turned the light off there. I don't know if you can see that. I think you can. Enhance. What do we see here? Perhaps. It's not very well focused there, but that is a broken wire. What do you want to bet? That's the power to the pump. Let me see if I can trace that back and figure out where that's going. That might potentially be our issue. Alright, so I couldn't see the pump very well from on the top under the hood, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this bottom cover off. Looks like we've just got a handful of screws and clips. So I'll go ahead and pull that off of there, and then we'll see if we can see better what we're looking for here. Definitely lots of rocks. Oh, and I missed one fastener over there on the side. Alright, let's take a closer look. So that is indeed the wiring for our pump. There's our broken wire right here, and the other end of it back there. Don't know if you can see that, but I've got the other end. And that does indeed plug into the bottom of the pump right there. So that's going to be our culprit. Which is interesting because I thought for sure this was going to be an issue with the pump, but instead it looks like we have a problem with our actual wiring to it. So I think that's going to be our solution there, is to just splice that wiring back together. I don't see any other evidence of wiring damage, but it does look like the rodents had a little snack on that. So that's pretty simple. Should be cheap and easy to repair. I'm going to just kind of do a good once over, look at everything in here, and make sure I don't see any other wiring damage, and then we'll go ahead and splice that back together. Alright, so I pulled this wire down. It was held into a little grommet on the side of the motor here. And I'm just going to peel back the tape a little bit. We'll have to do the same on the other end. We'll clean up our wires and splice it back together. Actually, I might as well just unplug that from the pump. That'll make things probably a little bit easier. Just got a little pull tab on here. Don't know if you heard that snap, but that was the little pull tab coming loose. And then I should be able to unplug that. Maybe. I might need a pair of pliers. There we go. Now we're unplugged. So here we go. There's our wiring. I did peel back the tape a little bit. And there's our connector. I'll take this over to the bench, kind of peel back a little bit more of this, clean it up, and then we can get to splicing it back on the harness. Alright, so I've got our pigtail here on the bench. I kind of peeled back the tape a little bit and just cut some off. I might even peel it back just a little bit more so that we have some extra clearance for heat shrink and such. And then we'll tape it back up once it's in the car. But anyways, I've got pretty much all of my supplies lined out here for this end. So what I've got is some adhesive lined heat shrink, and that's important. We do want it to be adhesive lined so that when it shrinks down, there's basically a glue in here so that when it shrinks and is heated up, it'll actually seal around our crimps, which is key because we don't want moisture to get in there and cause any corrosion. So I'll go ahead and strip the ends of these wires off. There we go. And then I have some uninsulated butt crimps here. I might have been just a little bit short on my strip there. So let me strip it just a tiny bit more. There we go. Perfect. That's just about what we want to see. We want to see just a little bit of copper showing. And then I'll go ahead and crimp that down. Do a little pull test to make sure it's on there nice and tight. Do the same on the other one. Sweet. Now I can go ahead and put our heat shrink on there. Both sides. Then I can go ahead and install this on the car side. So I don't know if I'll be able to show that on camera very easily because it's a little bit tighter space, but I'll go ahead and do exactly the same thing. I'm going to strip the wires off the ends, peel back a little bit of tape, and then once we get that all in there, I'll slide the heat shrink over our butt connectors. We'll heat shrink it all down and apply some fresh tape. All right, I was able to unplug this other connector on top of the motor and pull this down for a little bit easier access. This tape is spiraled the wrong way, so I'm going to have to kind of cut it out of our way. Very gently, right? Because we don't want to nick the wires. Sweet. We've got a good solid connection on both of those. So go ahead and slide our heat shrink up. Let me grab the heat gun and we'll go ahead and shrink that down. Oh, sweet. I don't know how well you can see that, but we've got the adhesive kind of coming out the end of the heat shrink there, which is exactly what we want to see because that means it's good and sealed. Now I'll go ahead and get some fresh tape on here. Sweet. All right, there's our repair done on that. I'll have to get the little, there was a little grommet that went right about here that the harness attached to that I had to remove. There's the grommet. So it's kind of got a permanent zip tie on it, but the trick to reuse that is to just put a zip tie through the existing loop on it, and we'll just kind of stack it on top. That way we can reuse it. So I'll go ahead and get our harness fed back into position here. Let me reposition the camera. There we go. So that connector right up there is our motor connector on the top. Then if we go back here, we've got our pump reconnected. There's our repair. So let's go ahead and bring the car back down. Before I put the bottom cover back on, I'll go ahead and start the car up, make sure the heat works. Let's go ahead and start it up. Put blast and see what happens. Wait for it to start here. There we go. We'll go heat, temp high. We'll turn our fan up. And we'll see if that starts to heat up. Let's see if our pump is circulating. Oh, look at that. We've got circulation. That's a fantastic sign. And let's see, is it starting to feel warm? It already feels a little bit warm. I'm sure it'll heat up a whole bunch here in just a second. But dang, that definitely seemed to work. Wow, yeah, it definitely smells very rodent-y in here. I'm gonna see if maybe I can pull the cabin air cleaner out and see if there's a nest in there or something. I don't hear anything in the fan, so at least that's good. They didn't get into the fan setup. Yeah, there we go. Now the heat's really coming out. So we fixed that issue. I thought for sure it was going to be a pump, but sometimes it's as simple as cheese-eating friends eating wires. All right, I've got the glove box pulled down here. Our cabin air cleaner is just right here. Little pull tab there with a little door that flips open. Oh yeah, look at that. Definitely appears to be some kind of critter that's made a home in there. I'm going to go ahead and get some gloves on and pull this thing out. And just try and clean out whatever I can. I don't want to drop stuff into the fan if I can avoid it. So I'll probably vacuum cleaner and try and get out whatever I can. Alright, don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see in here once I get the vacuum going. But we'll try and get this rodent's nest out as well as possible. Prepare for loud noises. There we go. Didn't want to drop a bunch of crap in there pulling the air cleaner out. Ooh, very gross. But at least we didn't drop any stuff down into the fan there. Yep, critters definitely like their cabin air cleaners. Luckily, they didn't chew all the way through and end up with a bunch of junk in the fan. That's what you really want to avoid. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and turn the car on. And I'm going to put the fan on max speed. Oh, of course, I got to hit the brake pedal, so I'll have to go over to the other side. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the fan all the way up to max. I'm not going to run the heat. I want to turn the heat off. I just want it to be blowing the air through the system. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some air conditioning system disinfectant, and we're just going to spray it right into the intake there where the cabin air cleaner went for a couple seconds. Okay, that'll probably help quite a bit. Distribute the air through the whole system. And I'll let the car sit here. Let that stuff sit a little bit. Probably won't eliminate the smell entirely, but it should help pretty substantially. We're back in the car here. Let's turn it on. And let's turn up our fan a little bit. See how it smells? It's definitely a lot better than it was before. Not nearly as rodent-y. I wouldn't quite call it completely fresh, but it's substantially improved. I might do one more cycle of the spray, and then I'll go ahead and install a new cabin air filter in here. All right, I just did a second spray cycle on that. While we're letting that air out, go ahead and raise the car back up, and we'll put the bottom cover back on again. Alright, so to get this bottom cover back on, I think I can just sort of slot this tab in between right there. Or, no, maybe not. I guess it just goes like that. Or, oh, there we go. I'm slightly off. Yep, the tab does support it. And then I can just get my two clips in at the back here. I can get the holes lined up. There we go, and now that's supported enough. And I can go ahead and get all the screws in it. Alright, car's back down on the ground. I've got a fresh new cabin air filter here. And my must have died. Yep, I think the battery on it's about had it, but there we go. Hopefully it lasts for a second. I'll slot that new air filter in here. Get the cover on. How about that? Now I can get the glove box back into position. It has this little, I don't know what you'd call it, a shock absorber basically for the glove box lid. It just has a little snap on here that pops in. Perhaps. Oh, there we go. I had it at the wrong position on here. It goes on the lower hole there. There we go. So that thing is on. Opens nicely. We'll get our customer's paperwork back in here, which I won't show on camera. Boom, there we go. We're good to go for this thing. I'll go ahead and just double check, make sure the heat and everything's working, and then this one can go back home. Alrighty folks, that's going to be a wrap for this one. All in all, it turned out to be a pretty quick and simple repair, but it just goes to show not all repairs are actually due to a failed component. Sometimes it's due to external factors, like in this case, rodent damage. Speaking of which, rodent damage is something you want to be pretty careful about if you have a car that you park outside, especially if you're in a relatively mild climate where rodents tend to hang out outside, and if you're near any kind of vegetation where they might like to hang out. Rodents definitely like making homes in cars, and on any kind of modern car, including of course EVs, there's tons and tons of wiring and stuff that a lot of the time they like to chew on. And if they can, they'll try and get inside of the vehicle, usually through the cabin air system, because that's usually the easiest entry point to get in, as happened in this case. So at least there wasn't any further damage besides just that wiring to the pump. Didn't look like anything else had been chewed on, so we got pretty lucky in that respect here. But anyways, yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this one. As always, thanks for watching, and tune in for another one next time.